These are the best books of 2024 so far, according to around 20 incredible booktubers. Let's get into it.
My favorite book so far of 2024. I've got just the thing. I've been waiting for this. Welcome to the library. I've read several amazing books this year, Mr. Libraryofaviking, but the one that stands out among the rest, 11/22/63 by Mr. Stephen King himself. I think last time I was involved in one of these projects of yours, I recommended another Stephen King book. It's kind of a trend on this channel. This book blew my mind. Magical realism, historical fiction surrounding the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Also an amazing romantic subplot. Stephen King just does it the best. This is my first 6-star out of 5 of the year. Perfect book. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this project, and I will see you guys later.
Hey, what's up, bookworms? So Viking want to know what my book of the year so far is, guys, and I've got to take the easy way out, and I gotta say right now, it is a tie between James Clavell's Shogun and Michael McDowell's Blackwater. Two amazing books that I really just can't make my mind up yet. It's going to be a photo finish down here towards the end. Amazing historical fiction that takes the, Stranger in the Strange Land and does it better than anything. Most of you probably watched the TV show by now. With the book is just as good, if not better. And then, of course, Blackwater goes through multiple generations of family drama. 50 years you go through all these characters, and you will find ways to root for and root against all of them. It's just incredible, incredible writing that Michael McDowell is able to use. And again, James Clavell, one of the greatest of all time. So for me, it's hard to pick one right now, but maybe by December I'll be able to make that choice.
Hi Johan, thank you so much for inviting me to this annual video. So of course, today's topic will be about the best books of the year so far. And well, I have to pick between two books, and because I cannot decide for this particular video, well, I'm going to choose a new release that became one of my top books of the year so far, and it is This Quiet Gods by Christopher Roque. This is the 6th and the penultimate installment in the Sun Eater series, and it is everything that I wanted from the Sun Eater, and as a penultimate installment, it is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I think I'm going to choose this one for now as my pick for the best book of the year, especially if we put new release into the equation. Then there is no doubt that This Quiet Gods is the best book that I have read this year so far.
I read 37 books this year so far, and my favorite is a sci-fi standalone that absolutely blew my mind. Great characters, an amazing plot, and it just is a story that made me reflect, and it got me out of a reading slump, and that is Recursion by Blake Crouch. Every chapter is like a cliffhanger. You just want to keep reading and reading. You will resent having plans. What happens, it is so mind-blowing. It talks about the power of memories, about their incredible role in order to create our identity, and I was consumed. I read Dark Matter by the same author before, but I think this one is even better. Even if you're not used to read sci-fi, I loved how this story gets you to something that you might have thought in the past and takes it to the last consequences. I hope that you can pick this one up and love it as much as I did.
But what is my favorite book of the year so far? Well, I have read some absolute bangers such as this one, and this one. But without further ado, the best book I read so far in 2024, and come a bit closer please, is gonna be Hyperion by Dan Simmons. When I state that this book blew my mind, it's not an understatement. Now, I am a huge fantasy nut, and I often struggle with sci-fi because it gets too technical, there's too much sci-fi jargon, and a lot of sci-fi books rely so much on the concept. But Hyperion must be one of the most brilliant character stories I've ever read, with some mind-blowing concepts as well. Absolute phenomenal book. Everyone should read it. Even if you hate sci-fi, even if you love sci-fi, please just read it. Also, before we go into the next booktuber, I just want to thank all the booktubers that have joined this collaboration. This collaboration is slightly different than the other collaborations I've done in the past, because this one, I really try to highlight loads and loads of smaller booktubers that deserve so much more attention. So while we do have some bigger creators here, most of the creators in this collab have less than 10,000 subscribers, and they deserve so much more recognition. So please everyone, go and check them out. Let's get on to the next video.
Hello, I am Jed Herne, author of Kingdom of Dragons, along with many other fantasy books, and the best book I've read so far this year is Howling Dark by Christopher Roque, which is the second book in the Sun Eater series. If you're not familiar with the Sun Eater series, it is basically this super sprawling, expansive science fantasy universe set far into the future, and we follow our main character Hadrian Marlowe as he basically recounts the story of how he reached the point in his life where he destroyed a sun and wiped out an alien race. That's not a spoiler, he tells you all of this in the very beginning of the first book. Now, the second book in the series basically takes place a few decades after the first book, and it it covers our main character Hadrian going to this planet that is a bit of a myth called Vorgosis. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he basically finds this legendary figure on this planet who is 15,000 years old, almost as old as like humanity, since they've been spreading out through this big galaxy out there. And it is just a brilliant kind of fusion of this almost eldritch, sort of Cthulhu-esque vibe with some of the monsters that this character has in his possession, along with the sort of scale and scope of the world building. It just feels so rich and so insanely compelling.
Hello, Johann Philip Chase here. Thank you for inviting me to share my favorite read thus far of 2024. It's a tough choice with books by Mark Lawrence and Jenny Wirtz and R. Scott Baker, not to mention the glory that is One Piece, but I have to go with Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb. This is the final book in the realm of the Elderlings, the culmination of one of the greatest series ever written, not only in fantasy, but in literature. So it is actually the first book that I finished this year, and it is my favorite read of 2024 thus far. It'll be a tough one to top.
Hey there, I'm Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to tell you about one of the best books I've read so far in 2024. I had a lot of books that I could choose from, but for this particular video, I'm going to choose Spirits Abroad by Zen Cho. And this is a short story collection of fantasy short stories. All of them have to do with East Asian mythology, whether that's Malaysian mythology, Chinese mythology, Singaporean mythology, and each of them is so unique from each other. I think there's short stories in here about auntie vampires. There's a short story about a creature that's trying to become a dragon. There's some about hungry ghosts and the afterworld, and so many more. Some of them interlink with each other, but quite a lot of them are unique. And I gave 3 of these short stories 5 stars and found them fantastic, and there's nothing I would change about them, whereas others just moved me in different ways. There were some that were hopeful, some that focused on friendship or family relationships or grief, but all of them were imbued with magic, and a lot of them had lesbian representation in them as well, which I really appreciated getting to see. And I can't wait to keep reading more of her works and highly recommend it.
My favourite book of 2024 so far is a tie-up between 2 very different books. We have Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb and also Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 6. And I can't pick one. The Eye of the Bedlam Bride is book 6, so there isn't a whole lot I can say spoiler free. However, the way that Dinneman is able to add fresh and fun new things in each book is so impressive. Some of the stuff that was included in this book to do with the overarching story of the entire series was so interesting. It still continues to be goofy, funny and hilarious, but the dark undertones are starting to come to the surface. We're having a lot more emotional moments as the series goes on, and it's pretty dark and messed up while still being hilarious. And Robin Hobb's great too.
Hey Johan, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm Dylan. I go by Spaced Out Wizard on the internet because I love sci-fi and fantasy, but on occasion I can space out a little bit. But one book I didn't space out to and had my full attention the entire time was Demon in White, Book 3 of Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio. This series has vibes of Star Wars, Name of the Wind and Dune, but is so much more. And this book in particular builds perfectly on the previous 2 before it in the series and just turns everything up to 120%. The pacing, the plot, the reveals, the battles, there's just so much to love in Demon in White. Once I picked it up, I could not put it down. This is must-read space opera.
Hi, I'm Willow from Willow Talks Books, and my favourite book of 2024 so far is A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock. This is a queer, gothic, historical horror novel. Any one of those 4 words would normally be enough to get me to pick up a book, and this is all of them. It's also a novel intensely inspired by Frankenstein, and I'm a really big fan of that book. My cat snuck in here, so she gets to say hi. A Botanical Daughter is set in the late Victorian period. Simon's a taxidermist and Gregor is a botanist, and Gregor has just stumbled upon an incredibly rare and strange intelligent form of plant life. And he thinks he can use this plant to create something new, a kind of creature. Honestly, obsessed. Please read this book.
Johan, thanks so much for inviting me to Libraryofaviking again and talk about what my favorite book of the top half of the year has been. I started my year with A Song for Our Bond from Guy Gavriel Kay. It hasn't been topped yet. People ask me what it's about, and what's the most important thing in your life?
For some, it's love of country. For some, it's just love. For some, it's family. For some, it's that burning desire to create artistic expression that helps define us. This is about all of that and more. Characters that'll get under your skin. It's a standalone, perfectly constructed with an amazingly satisfying ending. It is everything we love fantasy for and about. If you've started your Guy Gavriel journey, hadn't got to this one, or maybe you haven't started GGK yet, the prose is beautiful, lyrical, lush. You're just going to sink into it. It's like a bard's song as you're reading. Don't waste any more time. Go out and get this one. My name is John Minton, and this has been Talking Story.
Hey guys, it's Marty and Jaden from Next Chapter, and if you were to ask us what the best book of the past year was, well, honestly, I'm not going to give you one from 2024 because it's been only 6 months so far, and there's a lot of great stuff in 2020 and to 2023 that I'm just going to have to say.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Can't limit us there. We've been reading through a lot of Sanderson stuff, and so clearly it's gonna be a Sanderson book,
That's
right?
what you expect from Next Chapter.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. So my best book that we've read so far this year is Tress of the Emerald Sea. It's a classic. It's one of the secret novels. Those books were just outstanding.
It looks great too.
It's an amazing book. That's a good looking book.
If you're talking about a good looking book, I'm gonna add in The Sunlit Man. And the reason is just, oh man, the fact that these came out in secret, they were written in secret, that's a cool story. And the story inside the books, also excellent. Look at this. This one has black pages.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Can you go wrong with black pages? I submit that you cannot. Therefore, these are the two best books of 2024 and kind of 2023.
Yeah. Probably best books of 2024, 2023, and best looking books of all time.
Absolutely true.
All time.
Hey, what's good? My name is D from Don't Fret Read Books, and my favorite read from 2024 so far is Spin of Fate by A.A. Vora. I think this is a really strong debut novel. It's the first in the Fifth Realm series, and the world building and the magic system go crazy. The comp title says that it's for fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Naruto, and I'm a huge fan of both of those series, and while I definitely do see hints of Naruto and a little bit of Hunter x Hunter, this is definitely its own thing. It's telling its own story. I love the trio of MCs in this book. Each one comes from their own walk of life, and they're maybe the most multi-dimensional, nuanced characters I've read this year. If you're a fan of battle shonen or you're looking for something a little bit different in your epic fantasy, then I highly recommend this book. Thank you so much, Johan, for inviting me to be a part of this video. I'm excited to see what other booktubers are recommending.
What's good, Johan? This your boy Darko, Kindles and Kicks. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. If I could select one book that's my favorite read so far in 2024, I would most definitely have to go with Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This book taught me the persistence, bravery, and fortitude of our Black ancestors. And it also helped me to reflect on whether or not I'd survive if, like the character in this book, I was forced back in time to the early 1800s and not only have to endure slavery, but pick up that same fight for freedom. I don't even know how to answer that. But the fact that this book had me asking those kind of questions is why it's so powerful and such an important and enlightening read for anyone of any race.
Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Kayla from Kayla's Bookish Vibes, and thank you so much to Libraryofaviking for including me in today's video. He asked me what my favorite book of 2024 has been so far, and without a doubt, no second thought needed, it is The Reformatory by Tanana Reads. This was my very first book that I read in the year 2024, and I have not stopped thinking about it. Based in 1950s Florida, we are following young Robbie as he tries to survive the horrifying realities of the Reformatory School for Boys. We are also following his older sister Gloria as she is trying to help him escape this horrifying school. This book is both heartwarming and absolutely terrifying, all in the same breath. The ghosts, or haints as they're called in this book, are some of the characters that I still think about to this day 6 months later. The pacing of this book is set from the start, so although it is a bit lengthy, you are captured from beginning to end. Tanana Reads' writing is absolutely phenomenal. As I was reading the book, I could visually see everything that she was describing. Some of the characters in this book were based on her actual family members, and the Reformatory School is heavily influenced by the Dozier School for Boys, which was a real place in Marietta, Florida. I highly recommend this book if you want your heart ripped to shreds and for your eyes to leak profusely. Please have your tissues handy.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Koan, And my favorite book that I've read in 2024 thus far is Mars Life by Ben Bova. This is one of the books in his Mars Grand Tour universe. And one of the reasons that I loved this book is that it continues Ben Bova's great themes about space exploration, about exploring and the science behind it, about how to get people behind space exploration, about the difficulties that go behind it, the financing of it. It explores all avenues of this in a way that great stories like For All Mankind and Mary Robinette Kowal's The Calculating Stars do. So if you like both of those, I think you'll really like Mars Life and the whole Grand Tour universe.
I'm Caden Love.
And I'm Seema Love, his wife.
And we are Love and Lore, bringing dark fantasy, light fantasy, and everything in between. I'm also the author of Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard. So Seema, what was your favorite read this year?
So like you said, we combine hard and soft fantasy in our channel, and I am the soft reader in our marriage. I love romantasy, I love YA, and the favorite book so far has been Dance of Thieves. I love it. It has a perfect balance of romance and plot for me. It's moving at a great pace, and I just have nothing bad to say about this book. It's been great.
I've read a lot of really impressive books this year, especially Joe Abercrombie's Age of Madness, but what really did it for me is book 3 in Malazan Book of the Fallen, Memories of Ice. This one was a tragic masterpiece, brilliantly written, and the big reveals and twists at the end were just so amazing. I really felt for these characters, and this book really made me fall in love with the series. Thanks for watching.
So yeah, these are our favorites.
Hi, my name's Stephanie, my channel Stephanie's Bookverse, and my favorite book that I've read so far in 2024 is A Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. This was pitched to me as an adult Aragon, and it did not disappoint. There are dragons, magic, giants, elves, dwarves, all of the classic fantasy tropes in a classic fantasy atmosphere, but with like a modern feel and writing style. I love the world building. I thought it was a world that it could really sink into, and I really enjoyed the slow burn that we had with these characters to really become emotionally invested in them and their lives, so that when all this stuff happened, it packed more of an emotional punch. This has so much of what I've been craving in a fantasy book, and I read it over a weekend, and I just can't wait to continue on with the series. This book was so good.
Hey everyone, Bookswithzara here. So my favourite book of 2024 so far has to be a toss-up, and I know I'm cheating, a toss-up between A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay and China Mountain Zhang by Maureen McHugh. A Song for Arbonne is just one of the most incredibly rich worlds I've ever experienced. We are in Troubadour, France. We get a really deep sense of the culture and how the world reflects that culture. We also have some of the most incredibly well-written characters that I have ever read. It truly is a flawless masterpiece. And then China Mountain Zhang is a sci-fi book, and this is a book that essentially charts the journey of our main character as he tries to figure out his life, but it's set in an alternate history of the US where China actually is running the US. And it's just a really thoughtful character study of our main character, Zhang. It was just an absolute masterpiece because it really is about our main character and the journey that he goes through in the broader context of this futuristic world. And thank you so much to Johan for inviting me to be a part of this.
Hi Johan, I've read 45 books in the first half of the year, and a lot of them were in the fantasy genre. However, my book of the year so far is a work of historical fiction. It is The Given Day by Dennis Lehane. This is a bit of a point of departure for this author who normally writes crime fiction. The Given Day is dealing with a lot of the social and national issues going on in America, specifically in Boston in 1918. We're dealing with the end of World War I. We're dealing with divisions in social, racial, and economic lines across the country. We're dealing with the rise of immigration, dealing with the origins of the Red Scare, and there's even some historical figures that make some appearances in this book. It's a discussion of power, those with it and those without it, told in a very slice-of-life manner with some characters that you will love and some characters that you will hate. My book of the year so far is The Given Day by Dennis Lehane.
Hi, I'm Stephen Andrews. I run the BookTube channel Outlaw Bookseller. I've worked in the book trade as a writer, bookseller and collector for 40 years, and the SFF book I'm most excited about so far in 2024 is this, Harlan Ellison's Greatest Hits, in trade paperback from Herald Classics, which is a retrospective of his most famous award-winning stories. It's really great stuff. You should run out there and buy it. and is selling really well both in the UK and the United States.
What's my top read of 2024? Well, I am so glad that you asked, Library Viking. I really appreciate that because I have a choice for you. It's going to be an indie book, indie sci-fi by an author you may know. His name is J.C.M. Byrne, and you might know where I'm going with this. It's going to be Wistful Ascending by Mr. J.C.M. Byrne. This book blew me away when I read this book. I actually listened to the audio version of it, which I highly recommend that you do because the performance was just top notch. Right. In this book, it is a superhero tale that's told in a distant future, but not so distant to where it feels unfamiliar. We follow our main character Rohan here, who is basically Goku in space. And this book is just packed with humor, action, witty dialogue, and a character that has a very deep past that you want to know what happened. So again, thank you Libraryofaviking for asking me what was my top read of the year so far. That is going to be Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne.
Hi, I'm the book guy. Now, if I had to pick the best book from this year so far, I'd pick Lindsay Ellis's book. Lindsay Ellis is YouTube royalty, and her latest book is Apostles of Mercy. It's book 3 in the Numina series. Now, I will say the first 2 books are pretty good overall, with a couple of weaknesses, but the third book, she's really fleshed out those weaknesses and has written a terrific novel. This series is all about first contact with aliens. But because of human nature being what it is, the first contact doesn't exactly go well. So this is an urban sci-fi set within the real world, and it has some pretty profound social commentary on what it means to be human, like all good science fiction does. So that would be my pick for the best book of this year so far.
Hi there, my name is Robin, and you can find me over at Only the Best Fantasy Novels. First of all, Johan, thank you very much for inviting me onto your channel for this collaboration. And with no question, my favorite book of 2024 so far has to be Simon Jimenez's Spear Cuts Through Water. I don't think this book needs very much introduction, but I consider it pretty much a book that's going to become a classic of the genre at this point. It's just so creative, it's just so imaginative in how it's executed. The writing is off the charts. It's a brilliant book. It's easier to just experience this book for yourself than to listen to anyone who tries to tell you it's like this, it's like that, it may be for you, it may not be for you. Try this book. You're either going to love it, you're either going to hate it. It is going to be a unique experience. Thanks again, Johan.
Hi there, my name is Sylvia and I run the channel, Library Unbounded. What a great start. Johan was kind enough to ask me to share my favorite book of 2024 so far, but I'm actually going to give you 2 because I'm very generous and indecisive. The first book is The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding, an adult epic fantasy and the first book in the Darkwater Legacy series. This is the quintessential classic fantasy told in the modern fantasy style. We have a world steeped in politics and religion, possibly ruled by powers beyond human comprehension. And we follow a group of fantastic characters who struggle with the paths chosen for them and a whole lot of inner demons which become more and more apparent the further in the story we go. In addition to that, the book offers a mix of heroic quest, revenge, found family, redemption, sacrifice, mind-bending mysteries, and world-ending stakes. And if you're an avid fantasy reader, at this point you're probably asking yourself, yeah, what else is new? And the answer is nothing. Just a whole lot of what we like, executed perfectly. So read it, you won't be sorry. I'm willing to bet our friendship on that. And the second book is Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, and I just finished reading it. This is a non-fiction and sort of a recounting of the disappearance and subsequent passing of a man who walked into the Alaska wild determined to live solely off the land. And I know this doesn't sound like a very interesting book, but it's only because I am terrible at summarizing stories. The book is great, it's written really well, and it got me through the full spectrum of human emotions. From mild interest through exasperation and annoyance to fascination and terrible sorrow. It is a study in humanity and the need for being, not just existing. It examines this tremendous yearning for finding purpose when you don't know what it is. The author threw a few curveballs and the story shifted gears unexpectedly a few times, gripping me more and more as I read. And by the end, I was pretending not to cry very, very hard. So those are the 2 books I would consider the best I've read so far in 2024, though there are at least 10 others I would consider a close second. Thank you, Johan, for inviting me. It was a tremendous pleasure and an honor to be a part of this.
Hey Johan, Jonny Reads here. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this video. I am so excited to share with you my top pick of 2024, and I chose Dungeon Crawler Carl. My gosh, this book is so epic. If you are a fan of the Hunger Games, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and D&D, this book is for you. It has it all. It is action-packed and fast pace. Matt Dinniman knows exactly how to immerse you in his world, and I was immersed. I was so immersed I went directly into the second book, and I'm just gonna go straight on through all 6. So excited. Recommend to everybody. Top pick of 2024 so far.
My name is Sierra, and I'm the other half of And They Were Readers. And I've not done as much reading as I wanted to this year, but so far my favorite read has to be The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. It's a beautiful read on, wow, what simple found family can really do. And it was an honor to like take part of that reading journey and like engage with what it means to quietly love mathematics, but also find family. It was really beautiful.
Oh, you're still here and you want more? Well, the good news is that if you want more and you want to support me, then I do have a Patreon. Now, if you didn't know, then I have a Viking book club where every single month we read one book together, and you can be the one that can put the book forward. Last month we read this book, and this month we're reading this book. And at the moment we are trialing having Zoom book club discussions after everyone has read the book. So also, if you want to discuss a book with me and other like-minded people, then the Patreon is the way to go. Now, in addition to getting your name in my videos, joining the Viking book club, potentially getting art cards depending on what tier you are, I am also basically spending around 100% of my Patreon income to reinvest back into my channel. Since I launched my Patreon, I have had more than 30 videos professionally edited. And just to give you an example, from September 2023 to March 2024, I have spent more than $1,500 into video editing with the aim to consistently post high quality videos for you to enjoy. It is much appreciated.